And as everybody starts making their way in, we'll go ahead and call the first meeting of the House Budget Review Subcommittee on Transportation to order. And give them time to close the doors there and everyone grab a seat. But at this time, I'll have Madam Secretary please call the roll.
Representative Branscombe.
Here.
Representative Huff. Representative Imes. Representative Smith. Representative Tackett Lafferty. Representative Blanton. Representative Bowling. Representative Bray. Representative Petrie. Vice Chair Bridges.
Here.
Chair Upchurch.
Here. First on the agenda for presentation is Secretary Gray, Capital Projects Highway Plan. And I know we've got Ron Rigney and Jason Sawala and Sean McKiernan. Y'all want to come on up and introduce yourselves for the record. Appreciate you all being here today. As you know, we're hard at work on trying to craft our end of the budget. We've received yours and ask that you kind of make the presentation and kind of update us on what you've got in mind.
Thank you,
So
sir.
I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank all of your committee for inviting us to speak about the capital projects first, I believe, Mr. Chairman, and then the 2026 recommended highway plan. I was here to this very day 2 years ago for the 2024 plan for essentially the same message. But before I do begin, Mr. Chairman, I hope you'll allow me to take a few moments to talk about the service of our KYTC snow and ice teams that have provided the Kentucky for the last 5 days, the work that they're continuing to do as we dig out from this really massive storm, and unusual in some respects as well. But more than 2,300 frontline and support crew members and contractors, 1,500 plows and trucks. They've driven more than 793,000 miles since Friday through some of the worst weather to keep our roads passable. Enough miles to circle the earth, I am told, over 31 times. We would not be sitting here today, of course, without them. So, incredible effort. I'm always encouraged by the inspirational, can-do spirit of these folks. Committed, dedicated, skilled, and talented team members. So I want to thank them first. I also want to recognize John Moore, who is here in the high-vis gear. John, hold your hand up. John Moore has been at the EOC, pardon? Can't say. He has been almost 24/7 at the EOC, along with many of our other team members in KYTC and other agencies, of course. And I also want to recognize State Highway Engineer James Ballinger, who has been covering, essentially troubleshooting the whole state. I want to thank them. We continue to work secondary routes in the hardest hit areas along the parkways in districts 2, 3, 4, and 7. 7 is the Lexington region. Great partnerships with county and city road crews, as we've stayed in communication to assist where we can to support them. Responding to requests from Barron, Allen, Adair, and Monroe and McCreary counties, sending graders to help, and prepared to help others when resources are freed up in other areas. We've relocated our own resources internally from areas not hit as hard, sending plow and grader crews to address roads that are still in rough shape. Despite all the pre-planning, the pre-treatment, and the proactive placement of wreckers along major routes, pre-placement of wreckers along major routes, the all-hands-on-deck preparations, this has not been your normal run-of-the-mill storm. It's been snow and ice and snow and bitter cold, a lot of snowpack. I wanted to pay tribute and praise to our crews, to every city and county crew as well, to our sheriff's offices, police and fire departments, Kentucky Emergency Management, Kentucky State Police, the National Guard, and the forestry SAW teams, the cut and toss teams, and many others. And of course, without them, many of us would not be able to travel here today to talk about our efforts to make life better for all Kentuckians. So, I am joined today by Deputy Secretary Mike Hancock, Deputy State Highway Engineer Jason Sawala, who will join us at the table in a minute after Sean, Director of Program Management Ron Rigney, who many of you know, and Sean McKiernan, who is Director of the Office of Budget and Fiscal Management. After Sean's presentation about our capital projects, Mike, Deputy Secretary Hancock, will go into more detail about the plan and the addendum you received, and we will all be available for any questions you may have. So I'm going to ask Sean to go first now with the capital projects, and then I will introduce a little bit more about the highway plan.
Before you do,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Secretary, I know every member of this committee appreciates all the hard work of your crews and keeping the roads, trying to keep the roads clean. I know it's like you said earlier, a pickaxe, and our first responders, and let's not forget our electrical crews out there.
Exactly.
I've got a brother who's a first responder and a son-in-law who has spent many overtime hours in the last 5 days repairing electric lines. He's a lineman for South Kentucky Rural Electric, and it's not easy work. It's dangerous work, and so we want to. Exactly. I know every member of this committee appreciates that, and our thoughts are definitely with everyone. So, but thank you. You may proceed.
I'm glad you added those utility workers, because they've not only our own folks, of course, but they're coming in from surrounding states.
That one hits a little bit close to home. The electrical workers. So
yes, sir. Okay, Sean.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. As Secretary Gray said, I'm Sean McKiernan, Executive Director of the Office of Budget and Fiscal Management at the Cabinet. Happy to talk today about capital project budget and the governor's budget. As you may know, the Cabinet has authorization through state law to build and maintain roads and bridges as part of our operating budget. Likewise, equipment used for the building of roads and bridges is also exempt from many of the laws related to capital equipment purchases. The construction and maintenance of our buildings, however, office buildings and maintenance facilities, is part of our capital budget. And we often talk about our capital construction as vertical construction to differentiate it from the horizontal construction, the building of and maintenance of roads and bridges. The Cabinet has 12 district offices, and KYTC has facilities in every county of the Commonwealth, over 1,200 physical structures. And that's over 500 equipment and material storage buildings, 160 salt storage and salt brine buildings, 178 garages. I could go on, but it's over 1,200 buildings in the Commonwealth. These structures have to be kept secure and dry, heated and cooled and ventilated as appropriate, and they have to be safe for our employees and up to code to protect health and safety and support the state assets that are kept within them. Our Office of Support Services staff reminds me almost daily that a new chiller or HVAC system can cost $750,000, and that sufficient maintenance pools are vitally important to respond to problems at our aging facilities. 35% of our facilities are at or beyond the end of their useful life. So proper maintenance is always a very serious concern. We certainly appreciate that road fund revenues are limited. The official estimate has the current year road fund coming in at about 1% less than last year's actual revenue, and receipts are estimated to go down next year 1.5% less than last year. In FY28, we finally get a bit of a reprieve with receipts going up 2.5% over last year. So road fund dollars are definitely scarce. Given the high cost of new construction and the forecast for the road fund, the Cabinet heavily focused our request on maintenance and only the most necessary improvements to facilities for the 2026-28 budget, as opposed to asking for new construction. The vast majority of projects that we requested were maintenance related. The governor's budget includes $7.5 million in each fiscal year for maintenance pool and $1.2 million each fiscal year for aircraft maintenance. The governor's budget funds environmental compliance projects at $500,000 per fiscal year, and that was included in response to our memorandum of agreement with the Energy and Environment Cabinet, which requires a sustained effort to improve areas that were impacted by the Cabinet's activities over the years. The governor's budget funds maintenance and improvements to AASHTO-WARE, the information technology system that's used extensively by our engineers and road workers and support staff in the office. For several biennia, this was funded as part of our capital budget, but after conversation with the State Budget Office, it was decided to fund these costs as part of our operating budget, since the improvements were becoming more and more software as a service. We need regular upgrades to AASHTO-WARE to stay current on federal regulations and technology and remain compliant. Many of these products are moving from client-server-based to web-based, which requires more in-depth upgrades and requires a lot more support from the vendor and our own IT staff. And this funding is vitally important to facilitate our receipt of federal funds. We were pleased to see that the governor's budget included language to allow maintenance pool funding in the current biennium to carry forward through the upcoming biennium. This will allow our support services and aircraft maintenance employees and others to make use of these funds to fund projects as needed over the next couple of years. The governor's recommended budget includes $1.5 million each year for state park road maintenance. It also includes a project for $5 million in federal funds to alleviate need for truck parking at our rest areas. And finally, the governor's budget provides for reauthorization for projects. 5 projects just require additional time. 4 of these are primarily restricted fund projects at the Capital City Airport. Not being able to complete these important aviation projects could mean giving up some federal funds. The new terminal building at the Capital City Airport, for example, was awarded $1 million for site work and design, which has been completed. But that funding requires a state match, and that state match will be met with the construction of the facility. If the project, which is currently authorized, is not able to proceed, we'd very likely have to return those federal funds, and all we need for that project is reauthorization. There are 4 road fund projects that require additional time, so reauthorization, and a small increase in appropriations, a total of $1.4 million to complete them as designed. In summary, the governor's budget provides a very desperately needed $22.8 million in state funds for the Cabinet's capital budget over the 2026-28 biennium, and it provides for the necessary project reauthorizations. It also includes the welcome to carry forward language for any remaining maintenance pools that we might have at the end of the current biennium. At this point, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Representative Smith, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This will be brief. I've tried to go back the last couple of budgets and kind of try to find a pattern. And because, one of the things that we deal with in our districts is budgeted projects and then when they're done and completed. So I look back and find out what monies I've requested for my district. And I found a couple that keeps coming up, and it's in your area, I believe, in the capital projects, and it's reauthorizations. And I found it was a repeated, say in one area, 400,000 that kept getting requested for the same language, but for every budget request. Is there not a timeline that you put on this maintenance that you're requesting, that you're asking for, to say maybe we can do it before we get out of here? And I say that in jest because I'm not firing a shot at you. I'm trying to figure this out. Why it was started in some of them in 18, then 20, and then 22, and it keeps carrying over. I'll give you an example. one county, Whitley County Maintenance Facility. It started in 20. The request was 400,000. Well, it's back in there again, but it started in 20, and then it's been requested each time. So, do you have any kind of a way of tracking our approvals for your request, and to be able to at least give us an idea? Way I look at it, it'd be better to stop, clean it up, let's start all over, and then come in with a fresh request. Does that make sense?
Certainly. I can say that the budget office only allows, this is a relatively new, maybe 10-year policy, maybe less, requires now that a project can only be reauthorized once before having to be requested as a new project in the submission from the agencies. So I know that they are aware of a persistent reauthorization.
So you're giving us the
problem.
You're giving us the okay to clean them out, and then start fresh with your request. I was just saying it's duplicate. Am I making sense? It's a
Yes, sir.
request.
I would just say that a lot of these projects take longer to get initiated than we would certainly like, and some of that is due to acquisition of property or various reasons.
My assumption, and maybe I'm assuming too much, is if a $400,000 request would be for a specific issue on maintenance. I would assume that, but if it's carried over 2 to 3 budgets, then that's what I'm. And again, I'm just looking. I'm talking about myself. I'm looking back at my district on what's happening, what monies are coming down, what's been appropriated, and where we are with the projects. That's all I'm looking. I'm not looking statewide. That was concerning to me. That it's the same number requested over the last 2 to 3 to 4 budgets, and that's the reason I was bringing it
Certainly. I would just add that a small dollar amount like that sounds to me like that's reauthorization plus some additional dollars. So that's perhaps a project takes a while longer to complete and comes in slightly higher than the original estimate. That's what that sounds like to me.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Blanton.
Thank you. Thank you for your information right here in front row, right next to the guy you just spoke with. So going back to the beginning of your presentation, you talked about the receipts and you mentioned the revenues. If I understood you right, the anticipation is, or the prediction is, that there's going to be a 1.5% reduction in revenue receipts in the coming year. Is that correct?
Next year compared to last fiscal
Right.
year.
Do
Yes,
we
sir.
know what would cause that?
That's largely due to the assumption that the consensus forecast group made that the motor fuels tax would decrease 1.6 cents next fiscal year.
It would reduce another 1.6%.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's another
1.6 cents.
1.6 cents. That's another $50 million out of
Yes,
our
sir.
budget.
Let me
Every time we keep reducing it, we're losing monies. We can't maintain our roadways.
just add, is that based on the wholesale price of gas?
Yes,
as
sir.
it goes down that, okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Representative Branscombe.
Over here, guys, with all my friends. Thank you all for being here. I've gone through this, got some questions, and some of these you may be able to answer today. Some of them maybe, hopefully, might be able to get back to us on. But when we go down through here, I see a lot of line items that are increased costs. When you look at those, are we? I mean, I assume we are, but I just want to make sure that we are questioning when we have these increased costs, kind of scrutinizing them, because I can't see what the original cost was. It just says increased costs and has a dollar amount. So I'm assuming that's for the whole thing. So, but I can't see what the starting point is. But I'm just going to let you guys talk about that a little bit.
We'd be happy to get you the original cost
be good.
of the project, and those dollars are just to get the project completed as originally intended. And I'm happy to get you additional information.
Well, I think, can I follow up? And the things that I'm looking at are not necessarily the projects. Some of it is, highway infrastructure maintenance cost increases, traffic operation material cost increases, some of those things. That's what I want to make sure that we're questioning and verifying.
And I can say that a lot of those costs, which are part of our operating budget, are inflationary in nature. And I'm happy to get you more information about all of those.
If I could see that starting cost, where we were, and then where we're going, that
Yes,
would
sir.
be pretty beneficial. And I got one more follow-up, Mr. Chairman. One other thing I looked at, there was additional commercial truck parking. It was $5 million. Can you talk about that?
We believe that we'll have federal funds available for that
Okay.
project, and so it would be it's a priority of the cabinet.
Yep. Okay. Because I'm glad you said that could potentially be some federal funds there, because I know my next question was going to be, have we looked at maybe working with the private sector a little bit on some of those things as well?
And we have, Representative
Great.
Branscombe, we have done that. And as I know you're aware, being in the construction industry in a major way, that our interstates today are more traveled by heavier equipment, CMVs, for example, and this truck parking is a nationwide problem on the interstate. So we're working to address it where we can here.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman.
Are there any other questions at this time? Okay, we'll move on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, now we're going to move into the highway plan. I'm going to make a few brief, sort of high-level comments, and then I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Secretary, former Secretary Hancock, who, along with Jason Sawala here to my left, and a man that many of you know, Ron Rigney, have been the chief architects of this plan. And Mike, let me have that plan for just a minute. This is my prop. 1,300 projects in this plan this year, and I'm going to talk about that for just a second. But last year, KYTC awarded 600 new highway construction projects totaling about $1.6 billion. And that makes 5 straight years where lettings have been more than $1 billion. There's a lot of activity underway with more to come as we continue to invest in transportation. Now, this plan does 3 things. It takes care of what we already have. It pushes forward on decades-long priority projects, and it honors previous commitments and investments, that is, from the previous plans. It contains more than 1,300 projects across Kentucky for which $9.5 billion in total federal and state dollars are expected to be available. $9.5 billion over that period, 6 years. This is to complete multiple phases of work over the next 6 years, from planning all the way to construction. So you will see that the plan features the priority projects carried over from your last enacted plan. The 4-laning of the entire Mountain Parkway in the east, constructing a Brent Spence companion bridge in the north, and building a new I-69 Ohio River crossing in the west. Today, the state owns and maintains over 9,000 bridges, inspects 14,000, as well as more than 63,000 lane miles of pavement, which puts us in the top 10 bridge and pavement systems in the country. The 2026 Recommended Highway Plan takes a first things first approach to take care of what we have and invest in what we need to keep roads and bridges in a good state of repair. So, roughly 40% of highway plan funds are dedicated to investments in existing highway pavements, bridges, and guardrails. A major factor affecting all projects in the recommended highway plan, and Representative Branscombe, this goes a little bit to your earlier comments. A major factor affecting all projects in the plan is the significant rise in costs for construction materials, goods, and services in the last few years. The Federal Highway Administration's, the FHWA's very own National Highway Construction Cost Index shows that highway construction costs rose by 61% from 2020 to 2025. And just last week, Sean McMaster, the new Federal Highway Administrator, was here for the Kentuckians for Better Transportation that, Mr. Chairman, you spoke to as well. And he said that number is likely to be, in the last edition, likely to be 75% increase over the last 6 years. So that is why, alongside the highway plan, we are also making 2 requests of the Budget Reserve Trust Fund. This is, as Secretary Hicks mentioned yesterday at the Senate A&R Committee meeting. These requests will reinforce the plan and keep major projects from elbowing out others. And what are those? $125 million for the Brent Spence Bridge, which addresses rising costs and will help relieve pressure on other projects in the plan. And also the release of the federal grant condition tied to the already appropriated $150 million for the I-69 ORX project, the I-69 bridge between Henderson and Evansville. And this is a request that still limits those dollars to the I-69 crossing only. In other words, the request we're making is very specific to that I-69 bridge. So these funds are essential. They're really critical because these and other transformative projects in the plan are critical to prosperity and progress in our communities, providing safer, modern infrastructure to encourage economic growth. Working together, we can all be proud of the final product that will come at the end of the session that reflects our common values of improving safety and economic prosperity for the people of Kentucky. So now I will turn it over to Deputy Secretary Hancock for more detail on the plan, on the proposed plan, the governor's plan. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Can you all hear me okay? Okay. I'll make sure that I'm kind of soft-spoken, and a lot of times I'm told to speak up. So I do appreciate the opportunity to be here today, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee with Secretary Gray and the great group that he's assembled for you today. We just want to make sure that we do our best to put forward our best thoughts about both the issues alongside our capital budget as well as the highway plan. So let me just dive into the highway plan and talk for a moment about the fact that, as the Secretary said, the 2026 recommended highway plan invests approximately $9.5 billion in anticipated state and federal funding in more than 1,300 projects over the 6-year period from 2027 through 2032. The recommended highway plan is required by KRS 176, and the information required for each project contained in the plan is explicitly stated in that statute. The recommended plan document is accompanied by an addendum that provides additional background data as also required in KRS 176. We delivered hard copies of both the highway plan and the addendum. I think Jason's got a copy of that to your offices recently, and there are electronic versions of that certainly available on the cabinet's website. So the plan, both documents are readily available. The 2026 recommended plan features a cover letter and a narrative section that we encourage everyone to read, and certainly for your committee, highly encouraged, because the cover letter and the narrative both help explain why we've developed the 2026 highway plan as we have. When you read that, I think it'll give you an appreciation. The narrative provides a description of the factors affecting the preparation of the highway plan And those factors, if I get my fingers to work here, include the types of projects, the revenue estimates, and information about the Brent Spence Bridge, the I-69 Ohio River Crossing, and the Mountain Parkway mega projects. It also includes a historical tabulation of annual construction awards since 1990, if you're interested in a year-by-year award status looking back 30 years. The project listing in the highway plan is broken out into 3 separate tabs, and those tabs contain first the existing highway asset management projects. Those are projects like pavements and bridges and guardrail. And then we have the next tab, which has the highway improvement projects, and those are roadway improvements or building new connectors, that type of thing. And then finally, we have the Z-various projects like bridge inspection and emergency needs, unanticipated rockfall or landslide repairs, state-owned roadway dam repairs, and other non-specific project needs that fit into that category. The 2026 recommended highway plan was shaped by KYTC's strategy, vision, and mission statements. Our mission statement is to provide a safe, efficient, environmentally sound, and fiscally responsible transportation system that delivers economic opportunity and enhances the quality of life in Kentucky. The recommended highway plan is largely data-driven. It's using bridge and pavement data alongside SHIFT rankings. And SHIFT, as you're familiar, is that strategic highway investment formula for tomorrow that looks at every project and seeks to prioritize those, sorting out the quality projects. The recommended highway plan addresses 5 distinct focus areas. The first, as we mentioned, is asset management. We're simply taking care of what we have, our existing roads and bridges. And as Secretary Gray said earlier, almost 40% of the highway plan is dedicated to reinvesting in the existing highway system. The second area of focus is the High Growth Counties program. We're using $450 million of general funds that were appropriated in 2024 by the General Assembly to pursue 34 specific projects across Kentucky. We have prioritized the development of all 34 of those projects. They're identified in the highway plan as HGC as the fund code, and we're making great progress on each. The third focus is on the regular state and federal funding investments in new and improved roads to handle current and future traffic volumes, especially truck freight traffic. The fourth focus area is the Z-various programs I mentioned earlier. That program supports commitments like statewide bridge inspection, rest area improvements, truck parking, federal programs like CMAQ and TAP, as well as federal debt service payments for Garvey bonds, among others. The fifth focus area is the County Projects Improvement Program, the County Priority Projects Program, The recommended highway plan anticipates that the individual projects within that program will continue to be provided annually by the General Assembly and implemented through the use of and assisted by the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet's Department for Rural and Municipal Aid. So we'll continue to work in that direction. So let's talk for a moment about funding that's included in the 2026 recommended highway plan. Our forecasts for federal funding are based on federal fiscal year 2026 Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, that's IIJA, appropriations enacted by Congress back in 2021. The federal FY 2026 appropriation provides about $1.06 billion annually to Kentucky for our highway programs. Federal programs are subject to adjustment as Congress takes up the reauthorization of federal transportation programs later this year. The method that we're using to forecast federal funding for planning purposes as we put this plan together is standard practice among the states to take the last year of the previous act and to basically straight line that out into, in our case, 2032. And so every state is doing something similar as they wait for Congress to reauthorize those transportation programs. And our hope and our goal, and every state's hope, is that the reauthorized amounts will be at least at the amount of the last year of the IIJA. So we're certainly hoping that's the case. Within the 2026 recommended highway plan, each of the individual federal highway programs like National Highway Program, Surface Transportation Program subcategories, and all of our bridge replacement categories, they're fiscally balanced by year in the recommended plan as required by Federal Highway Administration. The final enacted plan, when it's done in April and we begin to move projects forward from that plan, at that moment, Ron will be beginning work on the federally required surface or statewide transportation improvement program. That's the STIP, and that STIP document is federally required, and the dollars are to be balanced in there. So that's why we focus on keeping that balance as we run through that program or those federal programs. With regard to state revenues, anticipated state revenues are used first every year. We always do this. We use these funds first to match federal aid dollars. This ensures that every available federal dollar that comes to Kentucky, that we are using those dollars and we're not letting them lay on the table as we implement our federal aid highway program. Excuse me. State matching funds are usually in the range of about $235 million each year. And after the state match has covered the remaining state dollars, it's about $50 million in 2026 and about $115 million each year thereafter are used to pursue state priority projects, that's SPPs, identified in the highway plan. A major factor affecting all projects in the 2026 recommended highway plan is the very significant rise in costs for construction materials, goods, and services in recent years. As the Secretary said, the FHWA's own National Highway Construction Cost Index shows that highway construction costs rose 61% from 2020 to 2025, and it was disturbing to hear the administrator of Federal Highways say that number could even grow. As we look at those increased costs, when we look back at the IIJA, much was made at the time about how much of an increase in funding we received through the IIJA. That increase in formula funding was about 27% when it happened, 27% each year, or 27% over the life of that 5-year program. Here we're looking at 61% increase in costs and goods and services. So folks, we're moving backward even though we saw a great increase in funding through the IIJA. These increasing costs will severely impact the number of projects that we're able to fund in this and succeeding highway plans. So as we look ahead, the following are some examples of the many important projects scheduled to advance to construction in the recommended highway plans 26 to 28 biennium. We'll continue funding to support the Brent Spence Bridge Corridor project in northern Kentucky. As the Secretary mentioned, we're requesting an additional $125 million in general funds for this project to address rising costs and to relieve pressure on other projects in the highway plan or other funding categories. Ohio and Kentucky are working together to finalize the design-build construction contract so construction can begin in earnest within the next few months. We are also working with Indiana to prepare for the tolling and construction of the I-69 Ohio River crossing at Henderson-Evansville. That project will connect completed portions of I-69 in Kentucky with the existing interstate system in Indiana. We are requesting the release of the federal grant condition tied to these already appropriated $150 million in general funds, so these dollars can be made readily available for the Kentucky share of the project. Kentucky's share of the I-69 ORX is currently estimated to be $525 million. The $150 million in general funds appropriated by the 2024 General Assembly is critical to the funding of that project. We are asking for removal of the federal grant language so those funds can be used immediately for the sole purpose of constructing the I-69 Ohio River crossing. The $150 million commitment of general funds is a vital component of the financial plan for the I-69 ORX and is being viewed very favorably by Federal Highway Administration and US DOT as we seek low interest federal loan to support the bi-state tolling initiative. In addition to the general fund commitment and tolling revenues, Garvey bonds will round out the cost for the Kentucky share of the I-69 project. We are pursuing other projects I'll mention quickly. We're pursuing construction of the US 51, US 60, US 62 bridge over the Ohio River at Cairo, the Cairo Bridge as it's known. Both Kentucky and Illinois are using their regular federal aid funds to equally share the cost of the bridge, and with each state responsible for its own approach work. Kentucky's share of the bridge and approaches is estimated at $365 million, again a sizable project. We are also continuing to widen I-71 to 6 lanes through the Kentucky 393 interchange in Oldham County, and in the out years of this plan, we plan to carry the widening of I-71 all the way to Kentucky 53 at LaGrange. With regard to smaller projects, we're improving Kentucky 555 from Kentucky 53 north to the Bluegrass Parkway in Washington County. This will complete all planned improvements in the Heartland Parkway corridor from the Cumberland Parkway north to the Bluegrass Parkway. We're also replacing the iconic Singing Bridge in downtown Frankfort. This historic bridge has been closed in recent months and has created significant adverse travel for folks in and around downtown Frankfort. We're working to convert Kentucky 18 in Boone County, it's Burlington Pike, to a super street. And that concept provides a safer roadway for both drivers and pedestrians through this very congested area. We're also providing improved access and a new bridge from Kentucky 40 to connect to the access road that serves the new Johnson Central High School near Paintsville. And we plan to address persistent rockfall issues by improving Town Mountain Road from Pikeville north to US 119 in Pike County. So in the way of concluding remarks, we've since the beginning of 2020, the Transportation Cabinet has repaired or replaced over 660 bridges, state and local bridges. We've improved over 20,000 miles of pavement, and we've awarded more than 3,500 projects to construction at a total highway system investment of $6.9 billion, again since 2020. To quote Kentucky's Transportation Strategic Plan, a good plan is like a roadmap. The journey is the safest when the roadmap is the clearest. The 2026 Recommended Highway Plan presents a clear path forward that provides both essential highway system investments and enhanced future opportunities for the economy and for the quality of life of Kentucky's citizens. We look forward to working with the General Assembly as you work to develop the 2026 enacted highway plan. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my remarks as far as an overview of the highway plan. And Secretary, I didn't know if you wanted to say something else before we
I think we're
wrap up.
ready for questions or comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you all for your presentation. I know one question that's especially locally is the Singing Bridge still going to sing? And if we do, if it is, do we know if it's a tenor or a bass or? Yeah,
Jason, have you heard?
but it is going to sing, correct?
All to be determined.
All to be determined.
Still working on that.
Okay, that's one question that I get asked a lot: is the Singing Bridge still going to sing? So,
When we get to that point, we'll make sure we let you know.
okay, just getting some more serious questions. The estimates on our projects, and we get those in. I know in the shift scores, when they come in meeting with Ron, going over with all of our members, we get an estimate. It has. And that we started meeting in October. Those shift scores were completed in October 1. Has there been, I know, increase in costs to those as we went over them? Has that increase in cost been reflected in the governor's plan? Because there may have been $500,000 for design that may now be $750,000 for design or right of way, and may have increased.
Yes.
From the shift scores, is those increasing costs reflected now? Is that new numbers what we're seeing in the governor's plan?
Yes, sir. That was our intention.
Okay.
And I know Jason and his team have worked hard as they've looked at updating the costs and making sure that we have the best data possible to work with.
And then
Work with the districts.
Yes.
okay. Then the $125 million in additional general funds for the Brent Spence, is that strictly increased cost on the project?
That is,
Inflation, to cover
that
inflationary
is.
cost?
yes.
Okay, let's look forward to the 28 budget, the 30 budget. Are we anticipating increased cost? I guess, when are we gonna get loose to this thing?
Yeah.
You- With,
Yeah. Yeah.
because, I mean, we know, going into we knew what a dollar figure of it was, and it just keeps growing. I mean, we've got to build it, and we understand that.
Well,
But-
we're making, I'll let Mike supplement what I
And
say,
then,
but
and then on our cost, is the federal government going to come in as well with, on some of it? I know they've put up quite a bit to keep from tolling it, and all that, but is there
I think
any discussions with the feds on that as well?
there's always discussions and underway. There's certainly negotiations are underway as we speak
Okay.
on the project. And we're making adjustments as we go in order to try to achieve the best value that we can
Right.
for the project. So we're working very closely with Ohio and with FHWA on this project. It is considered a high priority by the by FHWA and the administration.
And then one of the things, and this is my 26th year in the legislature, and my last, but over the years, we've heard, well, it's in the 6-year road plan. It's in the 6-year road plan, and we have members that have had projects in the 6-year road plan for 20 years, and we understand why, because of the over-programming. And that's been a practice, going back ever since I've been here. The governor's plan's over-programmed, the legislature over-programs it, and then, and when I say over-programming, we're allocating more money than what we actually have to spend. And then on this, just if you look at the codes, the SPP, the governor's plan, I think, was 2.6 billion, and with 750 million actual dollars that we can spend just on that one code. And it kind of, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And so I want to bring that to mind, that when people say it's over-programmed, it's not just the legislature that has over-programmed it. We're getting a plan from the governor that's 3 times, almost 4 times over-programmed just on that one code.
Well, I'll let Mike speak to the SPP, but I do want to
And we understand, want to.
we're carrying forward, Mr. Chairman, we are carrying forward in this plan projects from the previously enacted plan.
Okay.
So we don't arbitrarily cut or remove projects. Is that the fair way of saying it?
That's fair.
Mike?
Yes.
Okay, but I'll let Mike speak to it as well.
Mr. Chairman, this has been a debate for many years, and I don't know what the best way exactly to handle it is, but every year the plan comes to the General Assembly with more in the SPP account. I made a point earlier in the presentation to talk about the federal programs being fiscally balanced, because they absolutely have to be. And in the state programs, we year to year have rolled projects forward for many, many years. And that has eventually yielded a situation where right this moment in the SPP category, as you said, we have less than $1 billion a year, or $1 billion total over the life of the 6-year plan in SPP funding. And we have $11.5 billion even in the recommended plan of projects that have been identified in some way or form. And historically, the issue has been what to do with those. You know, it's very difficult, as you know, and as each of you can imagine, to move projects out of the plan. That causes great pain. But at some point, you know, that.
Mike, you've been at this a lot longer than I have.
Yes, sir.
What would be a solution if you've got a project that's in the 2-year road plan, in the 2-year? What would be the solution for that for us as policymakers and as we go through this budget, that if it's in that 2-year road plan, that we would have reasonable expectation that that project's going to be, you know, those projects would be completed in the 2 years. And I mean, I understand there's always projects that, you know, right away does, you know, may not go as planned, may take longer, but at least what would you recommend to us? 100% budget plan? I mean,
Yeah, I thought the way
if we instead of
sorry.
being programmed, I know in that one code is 353%. If we back that down to say 100%, would that make that code go faster, or be reasonably expected that just those roads in that plan would, or in that code would be completed?
There would certainly be fewer projects contending for the dollars available. I thought what the General Assembly did in 2024 was really great, because not only did you address a lot of needs the General Assembly saw as critical, but you also floated everybody's boat up and added more money to the mix through the High Growth Counties program. And that has, that was not lost on us. We took that incredibly seriously. And the gentleman at the far left of this table has about worked his tail off, making sure that those projects are. And
I'm not saying that
Yeah.
you all, I mean, this is generations.
Sure.
It's a generational thing that we've dealt with, so.
Yeah. It's
Just
Is
to
there a better
punctuate-
solution that you all see, other than more money?
if I can go back to the year 2000, you mentioned how ancient I am, and I'll pick up on that for a minute.
That was my first long session.
So, if I could go back there, when we first saw the highway plan take on an egregious over programming type perspective, the basic issue then was we had projects in the plan that that were not funded. We had a promise for a gas tax increase that didn't play out. We had projects against that didn't play out. Nobody wanted to take the projects out of the plan, and at that point, the cabinet was instructed to go from an obligations-based method of programming our projects to a basis where we cash flow everything. And so we, through that whole process over time, our cash flow management actually trumps everything else in that arena, because we're constantly having to weigh how much cash do we have in order to make decisions about which projects to fund.
If I'm not mistaken, that was a 10-cent increase
Yes, sir.
request.
It was.
I remember getting letters from local officials in my district, and I think Governor Patton had floated that out, and he got the
Yes, sir.
nickname Tenpenny Paul.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I do. And
So.
but the other side of it was there was a commensurate agreement that we would add projects to take up that 10 cents a gallon out through a 6-year period. And when the 10 cents a gallon gas tax rose at the pump or the gas price at the pump rose from $1.21 to $1.78 in like a 3 or 4 week period. And I remember the argument at the time was we can't afford to raise the gas tax because people are already paying extra at the pump. And so it became a real back and forth about how we were going to deal with that and whether we were going to take projects out of the plan or not. And so it's been a bone of contention ever since, and we're still wrestling with it, to be honest.
Are there any questions from any of the members? Tackett Lafferty.
Well, unlike the chair, this is only my 8th year in the General Assembly. But as many of you here know, over those 8 years, I have traveled and commuted almost daily from eastern Kentucky. I have children at home, so I have chosen over the last 8 years to make the drive from Floyd County to Frankfort almost daily. And I have seen tremendous improvement on the Mountain Parkway during that time. I've seen it firsthand. So I want to say thank you, to the governor, and to my colleagues in the General Assembly for the focus on the expansion of the Mountain Parkway through Prestonsburg, because, as I said, that not only have I seen major progress, but that is going to be a game changer for my region one day. And I look forward to seeing it being completed very soon. And I just wanted to say thank you.
That was rather nice of her, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
And I echo that. We appreciate what you've done and working with you all throughout this process.
It was a team effort, as Representative Tackett Lafferty said. It took everybody pulling in the same direction.
So, are there any other questions of any of the members? All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I guess now get back to grading and salting.
Grading and draining.
Thank you all. We have a motion to adjourn. We do now stand adjourned.